Have you ever woken up at exactly 3 a.m., wondering why you're wide awake while the world seems so still? What if I told you that this moment, often dismissed as random, could actually be divine? Most people don't realize this, but the Bible highlights a time called the fourth watch of the night, between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., as a period of divine encounters and spiritual activity. It's during this watch that significant events unfolded. Jesus walking on water to calm his disciples' storm, Matthew 14:25, Jacob wrestling with God, Genesis 32:22-31, and even the psalmists rising to pray and seek God's face. Here's something many miss. Waking at this hour could be a sacred invitation. You're not just awake by chance. God might be calling you to pray, to reflect, or to listen to his voice, but why 3 a.m.? What makes this hour significant? In this video, we'll uncover the biblical truths and spiritual significance behind these wake-ups and how they align with God's greater plan for your life. Before we dive deeper, let me ask, have you subscribed to the Faithful Scribe? This channel is all about uncovering biblical truths, spiritual mysteries, and inspiring you to deepen your walk with God. Don't miss these revelations. Click that subscribe button now. Your sleepless nights might never feel the same again. The Bible often refers to specific times of the day as significant, and the hours between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. are no exception. Known as the fourth watch of the night, this time marked the final hours of darkness before dawn. But biblically, it was much more than a measure of time. It was a window of divine opportunity. One striking example is found in the story of Jesus walking on water. As his disciples were caught in a storm, terrified and struggling, Jesus came to them during the fourth watch, Matthew 14:22-33. This was no coincidence. Jesus chose this time intentionally, meeting them in their darkest hour to demonstrate his power over chaos. In the same way, God may use the stillness of the night to reach us when we feel most vulnerable. Nighttime often symbolizes a period of trial or spiritual intensity in Scripture. Jacob wrestled with God until dawn and emerged transformed with a new name and purpose, Genesis 32:24-30. The psalmists frequently mention rising early to seek God's face or to meditate on his word, Psalm 63:1, Psalm 119, 147. These examples point to a powerful truth. The night is not just for rest, but also for revelation. So, if you find yourself awake at 3 a.m., consider this. God might be preparing you for transformation or drawing you closer to his presence. It's not insomnia, it's intimacy. Have you ever wondered why God would wake you at such an unusual hour? The reasons are as varied as his plans for our lives, but they often align with three key purposes: prayer, reflection, and spiritual warfare. First, prayer. Waking up at 3 a.m. could be God's invitation to intercede for others or to seek his face for yourself. The early hours of the morning are uniquely quiet, a time when distractions fade, and your heart is more open to hearing God's voice. In Mark 1:35, we see Jesus rising early in the morning to pray, setting an example of how these hours can be used for communion with God. Second, reflection. Sometimes God wakes us to draw our attention to something we've been avoiding. It could be an area of sin, a decision we need to make, or a calling we've been ignoring. These wake-ups are a gentle nudge, reminding us to align our lives with his will. Third, spiritual warfare. The Bible tells us in Ephesians 6:12 that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Many believe the hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. are a time of heightened spiritual activity. If you feel a sense of urgency or heaviness during these hours, it could be a call to stand in prayer against spiritual opposition. When God wakes you at 3 a.m., it's not an inconvenience. It's an opportunity to partner with him in something greater. Throughout Scripture, some of the most profound encounters with God occurred in the quiet of the night. Let's revisit a powerful, often overlooked story, Samuel's calling. In 1 Samuel 3, we read about young Samuel lying down in the temple when he hears a voice calling his name. Thinking it's Eli, the priest, he runs to him, but Eli sends him back saying he didn't call him. After this happens 3 times, Eli realizes it's the Lord speaking to Samuel and instructs him to respond, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." 1 Samuel 3:10. What's remarkable about this story is that God chose the stillness of the night to call Samuel. In those quiet hours, free from the noise of the day, Samuel's heart was open to hearing God's voice. Similarly, God may use the night to speak to you, whether through scripture, prayer, or an inner prompting. Another profound example is Paul and Silas in prison. At midnight, as they prayed and sang hymns, a divine earthquake broke their chains and opened the prison doors. Acts 16:25-26. This story reminds us that God works powerfully in the night, breaking spiritual and physical barriers. Could your 3 a.m. wake-ups be God's way of breaking chains in your life or calling you to something new? The question is, will you respond like Samuel and say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening"? When God wakes you at 3 a.m., He's not interrupting your sleep without reason. These moments are sacred, an invitation to step into His purpose for your life. Perhaps He's calling you to reflect. The stillness of the night provides a perfect environment to examine your heart and align your priorities with His will. Psalm 139:23-24 says, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts." What better time for this kind of soul-searching than in the quiet of 3 a.m.? Maybe it's a call to intercede. Is there someone in your life who needs prayer? Or perhaps God is placing a burden on your heart for a specific situation. These moments of intercession can have eternal consequences. Finally, consider that waking at 3 a.m. could be part of your spiritual growth. Just as Jesus met His disciples during the 4th watch to calm their storm, He might be meeting you to calm the storms in your own life. Trust that He is present in these moments, ready to guide and strengthen you. To make the most of this time, keep a journal by your bed. Write down any thoughts, impressions, or scriptures that come to mind. Spend time in prayer, and don't be afraid to sit in silence, simply listening for His voice. Remember, these wake-ups are not interruptions, they're divine appointments. The next time you wake up at 3 a.m., pause and consider. Could this be a moment God has prepared for you? Whether it's to pray, reflect, or simply sit in His presence, know that these moments are not random. They're sacred. God often works in the quiet hours of the night. He met Jacob in the darkness, called Samuel by name, and walked on water to calm His disciples' storm. He's the same God today, and He's calling you into a deeper relationship with Him. If this video resonated with you, share your experience in the comments. Have you ever woken at 3 a.m.? What did you feel God was saying to you? And don't forget to subscribe to The Faithful Scribe. We'll continue exploring the mysteries of faith and uncovering biblical truths that inspire and transform. Thank you for watching, and may you find peace and purpose in the stillness of the night. God bless.